Hello, good morning, everyone. Today we are going to discuss a table here, and this table is about the changes which happened in the modes of travel by the English people between a period of 15 years from 1985. We have two specific years given here. So we have to mark these important things, that is 1985 and 2000, what changes happened between these things. So this is what the thing that we are going to see here. Now I can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this is the total of these things. This is the total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 modes of transportation is given. This is an active mode of transportation. We are not going to this walk by somebody's help. You are going by yourself. This is an active mode of transportation. The rest all are passive mode of transportation, because you are, even though bicycle takes you, cars takes you, local bus takes you, trains takes you, so only walking when you travel, that's an active mode of transportation. Any next mode of transportation. So we can see that there is the most, you can see the total 4740 6475. These are miles traveled by a person in the UK between the years. Can see the most preferred mode of transportation was car in 1985, and it remained the same by 2000. So the dependency on car was quite large here and there. And when we go ahead, we can say that the next is train. We have an increase. Taxi, we have an increase. Long distance bus, we have an increase. So this is positive, 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 plus, 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 plus. And other mode of transportation also we have a plus here. So in general, what is minus here? Negative. This is minus. Local distance, we have a minus, negative. Here we have a minus, here we have a minus. So we have three modes of transportation. We have a decline in the kilometers travel. So we can say when a person is traveling less, we don't say that they prefer this thing or not. I cannot say exactly, but I can just say the kilometers covered. Maybe, because I may not like the train travel, but I have to. So I can say that I cannot say that most of the UK people preferred traveling by train, because they have to do so sometimes, because for their employment purposes they have to depend on train and come back by train. So some people, they have to hire a taxi. So if you have your own car, you won't be doing that. So you cannot say some people preferred taxi there. So the use of preferred taxi, or they preferred local bus, they preferred train, is wrong here, because it is all about the distance covered by a person per year. It's not at all dealing with the preference or popularity of this thing. So we have to say objectively, we just don't say anything subjectively. I just explain what exactly it is. When you say that people preferred cars, you say that they like traveling by cars. Maybe this is true. So when we say about taxi and say prefer, you cannot say that they have to do so. They have to do so. They don't say that because they prefer or not. I don't know. They don't. I'm not sure whether they prefer or whether they don't prefer. They traveled. The thing is that average distance in miles they travel. I cannot make sure that the word prefer is correct here. Sometimes it can be correct, sometimes it may not be correct. They have to do so. So use the vocabulary appropriately. Okay. Now we have to move ahead with the answer here. Before we move ahead with the answer, we have to see one more thing. So which mode of transport or the people mostly depended on cars, and the least mode of transport? Here it was taxi, here it was bicycle. So this is the thing here. Now let's go ahead and read the introduction. The way in which people, 1 minute, please. The way in which people depended on various modes of transportation in the UK in 2000 when compared to that in 1985 is depicted in the given table. So the way in which, so I can say how they depended on various modes of transportation in the UK. So how they use bicycle, how many kilometers they travel by bicycle, how many kilometers they travel by train. So the way in which people depended on various modes of transportation, it's perfect. So what is the data in 2000? Yes. When compared to that in 1985 is depicted in the given table. So the matter is clear, complete, introduction is complete. In general, if I say on overall, the distance covered by an average commuter in the UK in the latter year was higher in case of most transportation modes. So the distance covered by an average commuter in the UK, yeah, in the latter year, this is latter year, was higher in case of most transportation modes, higher, 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 higher. So most transportation modes, it was higher. In general, we can see exceptions too. As is obvious from the table, it is clear from the table of the total distance traveled by a typical UK resident of the total, most distance were covered by cars in both years. In this year, out of the total, most distance were covered by cars. While in 1985, this was this thing, out of this thing. There occurred a growth in this distance by 1735 in 2000. So I can say, I can add this thing and it becomes 4806 miles. So miles, the thing, the unit is very important there. Miles. Okay. Now, there was also a rise in the area covered per year by local distance pass. Yes. Train. Yes. And taxi. 1, 2, 3. There was an increase. Of this, more distance was covered by train passengers. Yeah. And that was 366 miles in 2000, yes, which was 127 more compared to this thing. So this minus this thing is 239. Clear? The increase in the distance covered by the local distance bus and taxi was 54 and 29 miles, 70 and 29 miles respectively. So there is an increase of 70 miles here, 29 miles here. So that's the thing here. So we have said this thing is also increased, this thing also increased. Sorry, this thing all increased, this thing increased, this thing increased. Train performed well there. Now I can say when there was also a surge in the traveling distance by other modes of transportation, that's other modes of transportation here, brackets given, the distance covered in the local bus declined to 274 miles from 429 miles. Yeah, this is the thing. Now the last, it is to be noted that the area traveled on foot too shrunk by 18 miles between the years. Yes, so this minus this is 18. Now, is there any data missing there? I can say one particular data missing here, that is the bicycle. You cannot see bicycle here. We have said about cars, local bus, train, taxi. Here we've set up other modes of transportation. And at last we have said something about the travelers on foot. So what about bicycle? Is it not an important data? Whether it's not an important data or not, I have this thing as a unit here. So it is my responsibility to include that in this essay, in the task 1. So what I have to do is that I have to add bicycle in the most appropriate place. So we have bicycle as the least mode of transportation there. Okay, so I'll be writing it at the end. The least distance covered by a UK resident in 1985 was by taxi. It was bicycle in 2000, but I can say that in bracket, that is 41 miles. Here I can say the least is when was by taxi. It's 13. So I have included that too in this particular thing. So that's very important there. So we have completed the task here. Thank you, one and all.